It was just another busy Monday morning at the city courthouse in Atlanta. Cars pulled up. Lawyers rushed in. Security officers checked IDs at the entrance. Among the crowd was a well-dressed black woman named Judge Olivia Harris. Olivia was no stranger to this courthouse. She had served as a federal judge here for nearly 6 years. Calm, brilliant, and respected by all who knew her, Olivia had a powerful presence even when she didn't say a word. But this morning, as she approached the courthouse steps, something unusual happened. A young white security officer, Officer Grant, stepped in front of her. His hand rested firmly on his utility belt. He squinted at her. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said sharply. "You can't go in without proper clearance." Olivia blinked. She reached calmly into her handbag and brought out her ID badge, a federal ID with a gold trim and the seal of the United States. "I'm Judge Olivia Harris," she said. "I work here." Officer Grant didn't even look at the ID. His eyes stayed on her face. "I'm going to need to verify that," he said, his voice cold. "This is a high-security zone. You can't just walk in and say, 'You're a judge.'" Olivia raised an eyebrow, but kept her voice even. "I've walked through this entrance for 6 years. Why is today different?" The officer hesitated. "New protocol," he muttered. That wasn't true. Several courthouse employees walked past them, all white, and none were stopped. Olivia noticed it. So did 2 other black clerks standing nearby, their expressions stiff. One of them whispered, "He didn't stop, Mr. Carter." Olivia took a breath. "Would you like to call my clerk or the chief of security?" she asked. "They'll confirm who I am." But Officer Grant stood his ground. "Step to the side, ma'am. We'll sort this out after you answer some questions." Now a small crowd had started to gather. People slowed down. Some looked confused. Others exchanged awkward glances. "Do you stop every judge this way?" Olivia asked, still calm. The officer didn't answer. Instead, he raised his radio. "Got a woman claiming she's a judge trying to enter. Need backup to confirm ID." The word woman echoed in Olivia's ears. Not judge. Not ma'am. Not your honor. Just woman. It wasn't the first time Olivia had been misjudged. But here, at her own courthouse, it stung deeper. Moments later, the chief of security, a Latino man named Chief Ramos, came rushing down the steps. When he saw Olivia, his eyes widened. "Judge Harris, I'm so sorry," he said, rushing toward her. "What's going on here?" Officer Grant pointed. "She didn't have the right ID. She's a federal judge." Chief Ramos snapped. "She doesn't need your permission to enter this building. She owns that courtroom." Now the silence grew even heavier. Everyone heard it. The officer's face went pale. I didn't know." "You didn't try to know," Olivia said quietly. Without another word, she stepped past him and walked up the steps, her heels clicking with purpose. But what happened next would shake the entire courthouse, and eventually the whole city. This wasn't just about Olivia anymore. This was about how many others had been stopped, silenced, or questioned, just because they didn't look the part. And Olivia? She wasn't done. Judge Olivia Harris walked through the grand hallway of the courthouse, her heels echoing off the polished marble floors. Her face was unreadable, calm on the outside, but inside she felt a familiar sting. This wasn't the first time she had been treated like a stranger in her own space, but this time it happened in front of everyone. As she reached her chambers, her law clerk, Jasmine, a sharp young black woman in her 20s, stood waiting with a furrowed brow. "Judge Harris," she said quickly, "I saw what happened. People are already whispering about it." Olivia didn't respond immediately. She hummed her robe, sat at her desk, and took a slow breath. Then she turned to Jasmine. "Get Chief Ramos and ask him to bring Officer Grant." Now, Jasmine nodded and rushed out. 10 minutes later, the chief of security knocked on Olivia's office door, followed by Officer Grant, who now looked less confident, his uniform suddenly feeling too tight on his skin. "Come in," Olivia said without looking up. They stood before her desk, silent. Then she lifted her eyes and looked straight at Officer Grant. "I'd like to hear your version of what happened this morning," she said calmly. Officer Grant hesitated. "Your Honor, I didn't know who you were. I thought you were trying to what?" She interrupted. He paused. "Trying to enter the building without proper verification. I showed you my badge, my federal ID, yet you didn't even glance at it. But you allowed 3 white court employees to walk past without question." Grant shifted uncomfortably. "I was just trying to do my job." "Your job is to protect the courthouse. not to decide who belongs here based on how they look. Chief Ramos cleared his throat. Your Honor, I take full responsibility. He's only been on the job 2 weeks. He needs more training. Olivia stood slowly. Yes, he does. But this isn't just about training. This is about perception, about who we automatically suspect and who we automatically trust. Grant looked down at the floor. I'm sorry, Judge Harris. I accept your apology, she said, but this conversation isn't over. She walked to the window and stared out at the street below, the city buzzing as usual. Then she turned back. Chief Ramos, I want a mandatory anti-bias workshop for all courthouse security staff, starting this week. I also want a review of how many similar complaints have been quietly filed and dismissed. He nodded immediately. I'll make it happen. As for Officer Grant, she looked at him. You can either take this moment and grow from it, or you can stay blind to the reason it happened. That choice is yours, but you need to do better. He swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. As they left the room, Jasmine returned with a folder in hand. Judge, she said softly, you might want to see this. Olivia took the folder and flipped it open. Inside were printed emails dated complaints from other courthouse staff, mostly Black and Latino employees, who'd experienced similar stops at the gate over the past year. Most of the complaints have been marked resolved without action, she sighed. It runs deeper than I thought. Jasmine spoke gently. Maybe this is the moment that opens the door. Judge Harris closed the file. Then let's open it wide. Later that day, Olivia sent a memo to the courthouse board requesting a formal meeting. Not just about her incident, but about the pattern, the culture, the quiet prejudices that made people question a judge's identity based on skin color. She wasn't just going to sit behind the bench anymore. She was going to take a stand outside the courtroom, too. And across town, the story was already spreading. Someone had filmed the incident on their phone. The video showed Olivia being stopped, her calm response, the officer's refusal, and the moment Chief Ramos apologized to her in front of the crowd. It had already gone viral. By noon, Judge Olivia Harris's phone buzzed nonstop. Colleagues, reporters, community leaders, even federal officials from Washington. The video had exploded across the internet. The clip, barely 2 minutes long, had been captured by a young paralegal on her way into work. It showed everything: Officer Grant's stern demand, Olivia's calm response, the badge she presented, the cold dismissal, and the moment Chief Ramos realized the mistake. It was already titled on social media. She's a judge, not just a Black woman. News outlets replayed it on loop. The courthouse was now the center of a national discussion about unconscious bias, systemic racism, and what respect really looks like, especially for Black women in power. But inside Olivia's office, things weren't as loud. The walls were thick, the silence heavier. Jasmine walked in with another stack of printed emails. Judge, the complaints go back even further, 5 years. Some from public defenders. One from a janitor who was stopped twice even after showing ID. Olivia took the papers slowly, flipping through them. So many names, she murmured. So many voices, unheard. She paused on one note handwritten by a former intern who had resigned after being told, "People like you need to check in twice." Olivia felt her chest tighten. This was no longer just about her experience. It was a mirror, and it reflected years of invisible injustice. Just then, her courtroom door cracked open. It was Judge Miles Reynolds, a senior white judge with salt and pepper hair and decades on the bench. "Olivia," he said, stepping in, "I wanted to speak with you privately." She motioned to the chair across from her desk. "Of course." He sat, looking unusually somber. "First, let me say, what happened this morning was unacceptable. I saw the video. I'm sorry you had to experience that." Olivia folded her hands. "Thank you, Miles." He hesitated. "But I need to warn you, the board isn't pleased with the publicity." She blinked. "The publicity. They think it reflects poorly on the courthouse. They say it's stirring unrest." Olivia leaned forward. "So we're worried about bad press now?" "Not the actual problem," Miles sighed. "I'm just the messenger. But some of the board members are suggesting you should avoid public comment. Let things cool down." Olivia stared at him. "Let injustice cool down." He looked away. "You know how political this place can be." She stood slowly. "Let me be very clear, Miles. I have earned every ounce of respect in this courthouse. I climbed, I proved, I served. And now I'm being told to stay silent, because the truth is loud." Miles looked conflicted, then stood too. "Just be careful, Olivia. You're pushing into dangerous waters. She smiled faintly. I've been swimming in them all my life. After he left, Jasmine returned. Judge, Channel 8 wants an interview. So does NPR. And a local student group wants to organize a courthouse rally in support. Olivia took a deep breath. This wasn't how she planned her week. But maybe. It was how something much bigger was going to begin. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Her old law school professor, Dr. Angela Reed, now a civil rights attorney. Angela, she said when the line picked up, I think it's time to do more than sit behind a bench. I want to build something real. Angela smiled on the other end. Then let's start with one question, Olivia. What's that? Who else is ready to speak? Judge Olivia Harris stood before a mirror in her office, not to admire her reflection, but to prepare for something far different than any case she'd ever judged. This wasn't about law books or evidence. It was about truth, about people, about justice beyond the courtroom. Across the city, the video had ignited debate. Social media platforms overflowed with hashtags like #ChiceTheJudge and #RespectBlackExcellence. Civil rights groups picked it up. University students organized awareness campaigns. Protest signs appeared outside the courthouse, quietly held by those who had seen enough and could no longer stay silent. But not everyone supported her. Inside the courthouse, tension ran thick. Some staff walked past her without greeting. Others whispered in corners. A few even blamed her for bringing too much attention to the workplace. Still, Olivia pressed forward. With help from Dr. Angela Reed, her former professor turned civil rights warrior, Olivia formed a quiet task force. Not just of judges, but clerks, security staff, interns, janitors, and community leaders. All willing to speak, all ready to change the culture that lived in the shadows. On Wednesday, she stepped into a packed town hall meeting hosted in the courthouse's main auditorium. No robes, no gavel, just Olivia, in a sharp navy blue suit, standing in front of a banner that read, Dignity starts at the door. The room buzzed with nervous energy. I want to thank everyone for coming, Olivia began, her voice steady, especially those who were afraid to. There was a pause, silence. 2 weeks ago, I was stopped at the courthouse steps. Not because I forgot my badge, not because I was doing anything wrong, but because I didn't look like someone who belongs here, and I know I'm not the only one. She held up the stack of past complaints. These are your stories. Most were dismissed. Some were never read, but today they're seen, and that changes now. A young black janitor in the front row clapped once, then twice. Soon the entire room followed. One by one, people stood and shared their experiences. A Hispanic intern said she'd been stopped 3 times in 1 week. An older black male attorney revealed he was once asked if he was lost in the judge's wing. Even a white security guard spoke up. I've seen it happen, he admitted, and I didn't speak. That ends today. The meeting lasted nearly 3 hours, but something powerful happened. People began to listen to one another, really listen. Later that evening, Judge Olivia walked outside. The sun was setting over the city, casting warm gold across the courthouse steps, the same place she had been stopped just days earlier. There she met a woman she didn't recognize. Older, dressed plainly, holding a notebook. Judge Harris, the woman asked. Can I speak with you? Olivia nodded. Of course. The woman stepped closer. My daughter is studying law because of you. She saw what happened and said, if she can stay strong, so can I. Olivia smiled, emotion rising in her chest. Thank you for sharing that, she said. The woman shook her head. No, thank you, for not backing down, for reminding this place what a real judge looks like. As the woman walked away, Olivia turned toward the tall courthouse columns. She had faced resistance, silence, judgment. But what stood taller than all that now was something stronger, courage. This wasn't just her moment. It belonged to everyone who had ever been overlooked, and she would carry it forward, no matter how heavy it became. The next morning, Judge Olivia Harris walked into the courthouse with her head high, but the air around her had changed. The atmosphere felt colder. The friendly nods she once received from colleagues had grown tighter. The smiles were fewer, and as she walked toward her chambers, she noticed 2 board members quietly turn away when they saw her coming. The video had done more than spark conversation. It had ignited a quiet war within the building. Jasmine greeted her with a tight smile. Judge, I think you need to see this. She handed Olivia a letter. The seal at the top was from the Judicial Oversight Committee. It read, This is an official notice that your recent public comments and community organizing activities have raised concerns regarding impartiality, political conduct, and use of your public office for advocacy beyond your assigned duties. You are hereby requested to attend a formal hearing regarding potential ethics violations. Olivia stared at the letter, then laughed once, bitter and low. They're trying to silence me, she said. Jasmine nodded. They're hoping you'll back off, that you'll be afraid to lose your seat. But Olivia didn't look afraid. She looked clearer. If the system feels threatened by truth, she said, then maybe it was never built for justice in the first place. Still, the pressure began to mount. Board members began pushing to remove her from leadership committees. Whispers of disbarment hearings floated through courthouse halls. Anonymous emails and letters arrived, some warning her to know her place, some not so subtle. Olivia received a message from Judge Reynolds, the senior judge who once warned her. It simply said, "They're not playing fair anymore. Be careful." She replied, "Good. I stopped playing fair the moment they stopped seeing us." Despite the threats, Olivia pushed forward. She doubled down on the Courthouse Reform Task Force. Community organizers reached out to support her publicly. Local newspapers ran op-eds defending her efforts to bring transparency to a system that had long protected itself from accountability. And then something surprising happened. One by one, other judges started to speak. First, it was Judge Ava Thomas, a white woman known for her sharp legal mind. She released a statement supporting Olivia, saying, "Speaking out about bias is not politics. It's principle." Then came Judge Malik Bryant, the first openly gay black male judge in the state. He stood on camera and said, "Judge Harris stood up not just for herself, but for all of us." The tide began to shift. A nationally syndicated TV interview followed. Olivia sat across from a respected anchor, live on air. "Anchor, Judge Harris, aren't you afraid this might cost you your seat?" "Olivia, if my seat requires silence in the face of injustice, then I was never sitting in power. I was sitting in fear. And I didn't become a judge to stay afraid." The quote went viral. Again. But so did the opposition. Social media trolls tried to twist the narrative. News outlets with an agenda accused her of race baiting. A powerful law firm even filed a motion to have her recused from upcoming trials, claiming she had compromised neutrality. Olivia refused to waver. She spoke at law schools. She met with advocacy groups. She mentored young legal interns, especially those who came from backgrounds like hers, who needed to see someone who looked like them owning the bench. Still, the hearing date loomed, a formal judicial ethics inquiry that would put her actions on trial. Jasmine watched her one afternoon as Olivia reviewed documents in her office. "You're really going to fight them, Judge?" she asked. Olivia looked up. "I'm not just fighting them, Jasmine. I'm reminding them. I belong here. And I'm not alone anymore." She paused, then added softly, "They expected me to kneel. I'm still standing." The courtroom was silent. Not the usual silence before a hearing begins, but the kind of heavy quiet that settles when history is about to be made. For the first time in her career, Judge Olivia Harris wasn't seated behind the bench. She sat at a long oak table on the left side of the chamber, facing a panel of 5 Judicial Ethics Board members, all wearing stiff expressions, all of them older, 4 white, 1 black, all watching her as if she were a stranger. The hearing room was packed. Reporters lined the back wall. Law clerks filled the gallery. Community leaders, law students, even retired judges, all had come to witness what many were calling the trial of truth. Her attorney, a bold and brilliant woman named Carla DeWitt, leaned over and whispered, "They expected you to be nervous. Show them why they were wrong." Olivia gave a subtle nod. At the front, the lead ethics board member, a gray-haired judge named Raymond Holt, cleared his throat and began. "Judge Harris, this inquiry concerns whether your recent public statements and organizing efforts have violated the impartial standards expected of a sitting federal judge. You are entitled to respond before this panel renders judgment." The accusation was clear. They believed she had politicized the judiciary. They said she had used her position for activism, that she had overstepped. But Olivia was ready. She stood slowly, dignified, calm, strong. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board," she began, her voice steady, "I have been a judge for over a decade. Before that, I was a federal prosecutor. I've handled cases involving murder, corruption, trafficking, and treason. But I've never stood before a panel for telling the truth." She paused, letting her words settle. "What happened to me outside that courthouse was not new, not unique, not exaggerated. It was reality. A reality faced by thousands of people who look like me. And when I spoke out, I did so not to divide, but to heal. One of the board members leaned forward. Judge Harris, do you understand how your actions may be perceived as eroding public trust in judicial neutrality? She met his eyes. No, sir. I believe silence in the face of injustice erodes that trust far more. A murmur rose in the room. She continued, when a judge can be stopped and questioned simply because of her skin color, what does that say to the young black girl studying law tonight? What does that say to the immigrant janitor showing up at 5 a.m. to clean the halls of justice? Judge Holt interrupted. This hearing is not about social commentary, but it should be. Olivia shot back, respectfully but firmly. This hearing should ask why a system built to protect fairness is so uncomfortable when someone holds up a mirror. The room fell into stunned silence. Then Carla, her attorney, handed over a folder. We've submitted over 200 signed statements from courthouse staff, lawyers, former interns, all supporting Judge Harris and confirming long-standing bias within this building. The board quietly accepted the folder. Olivia took a breath. I don't regret speaking out. I regret how long I stayed silent before that day. If this hearing ends with me losing my seat, then so be it. But I will walk out knowing I stood for something larger than robes and titles. There was nothing more to say. She sat down. The board recessed for deliberation. An hour passed. Outside the courthouse, a peaceful crowd had gathered. Thousands, holding candles, holding signs. Some read, "A judge for the people. Truth is not a violation. We see you, Judge Harris." And then the decision came. The judicial panel returned to the chamber. The murmurs died instantly. Everyone leaned in. Phones were silenced. Breaths were held. Judge Olivia Harris sat still, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Calm on the surface. Beneath, her heart pounded, not in fear, but in anticipation. Not for herself, but for what this verdict would mean for everyone who had ever been told to stay in their place. The lead ethics board member, Judge Raymond Holt, cleared his throat and began. After thorough review and deliberation, the panel finds no violation of judicial ethics by Judge Olivia Harris. Furthermore, we recognize that her conduct, though public and impassioned, stemmed from personal experience and served a broader dialogue that the judiciary can no longer afford to avoid. Olivia blinked once, then slowly exhaled. Cheers erupted in the back rows. Applause thundered in waves. A few gasps turned to joyful sobs. Jasmine, seated behind her, covered her mouth and let the tears fall freely. Olivia didn't smile. Not yet, because it wasn't about winning. It was about what would come next. Later that day, as the courthouse lawn filled with supporters, Olivia stepped up to a makeshift podium placed on the steps where everything had begun. The very same spot where she had once been stopped. Not as a judge, but as a suspicious woman. Now thousands looked up at her with admiration. Microphones were lowered. Phones raised. Silence blanketed the city block. She adjusted the mic and began. I want to thank this city, not for giving me this moment, but for standing with me in it. Cheers. When I was stopped outside these steps, I was made to feel small, invisible, unworthy. But the truth is, I had already been made to feel that way before. In classrooms, in law offices, in elevators, in boardrooms. She paused, but something changed. Not because of the title I carried, but because of the voices that refused to be silent. Because people who had nothing to gain stood up for what was right. She looked out at the diverse sea of faces, old and young, black and white, lawyers and janitors, pastors and students. Let me be honest with you all, I didn't want to fight this fight. I just wanted to do my job. But now I realize this was always part of the job. Because what good is a judge if she can't see the judgment the world places on others before they ever step into her courtroom? The crowd clapped, some shouting yes, and speak it, she continued. So I'm not here to celebrate a victory. I'm here to begin something. Starting today, I am founding an independent council to track and expose racial and systemic bias in our judicial and security systems, from law schools to courtrooms. A buzz moved through the crowd. This wasn't just a speech. This was action. It will be called the Justice Mirror Project, because the system must see itself clearly before it can truly serve all people. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. And let me say this to every young woman, every black professional, every single soul who's been mistaken, belittled, passed over, or stopped at the gate. She stepped closer to the edge of the podium. You are not an accident. You are not out of place. And if anyone tells you otherwise, Walk through anyway. Walk through like you belong, even when they don't want to see you, because your existence is proof that they can no longer ignore the truth. Tears floated openly now. Applause rose and didn't stop for nearly 5 minutes. That night, the footage of Olivia's speech aired across the nation. Major media outlets ran the headline. Judge Olivia Harris cleared of charges, declares justice begins at the door. A new national conversation began, not just about law, but about presence, representation, dignity. Universities invited her to speak. Law schools requested her curriculum. Civil rights groups partnered with her new counsel. Retired judges volunteered. Even Officer Grant, the one who had stopped her, wrote a public letter apologizing and volunteering for the first training session of the Justice Mirror Project. Olivia accepted, not because she wanted revenge, but because she believed in redemption through awareness. Months later, she returned to her chambers as always, coffee in hand, robe neatly hung. But this time, as she entered the courthouse, no one stopped her. Instead, the new head of security, a young black woman named Serena Walker, opened the door for her and said with a warm smile, "Welcome home, Judge Harris." Olivia smiled. "Thank you, Officer Walker." And this time she meant it deeply, because home wasn't just about where she worked. It was about where her truth had finally been heard.